We'll
selected.
yeah.
On to the Independent, the official statistic. UK has only got 3 airports.
Yes.
Have I been miscounting all this while?
Absolutely.
This is marvellous.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Do you want to go first on it, John? It's your paper.
About how net immigration has been miscounted over a 10-year period because the survey that it's based on has focused on 3 main airports and has missed 350,000 East Europeans coming into regional airports. I mean, it is quite uncanny. I mean, what's very clever about what the Labour Party did today was that they said they were going to bring in a system, if they're elected, of counting people in and counting people out, and that's going to be difficult for the Conservatives to answer.
Yes. But when you say uncanny, you mean outrageous. I mean, if this is correct, I mean, 346,000.
Yeah. Oh, this is Heathrow, Gatwick, and Manchester. What about Glasgow, Edinburgh, Luton, Birmingham, Southampton, and no doubt there's another sort of... I don't think Ryanair, for example, flies from any of the ones that they got here.
No, I'm
but
not...
you can't actually, you know, have an official statistic that ignores some of the main entry points into the UK.
Well, you can.
Very strange.
And we did. I mean, the point is, the principle is that conducting a survey, you're extrapolating from a sample. The point is they're obviously sampling the wrong places because with the influx of workers from Europe, people have been starting to come in at other airports, and they didn't reflect that in the sample. The sample design. I mean, it's not quite as ridiculous as the headline suggests.
But if you are going to have a sample on which you're going to gross up, it's got to be a representative sample. It's got to be statistically significant, and it's kind of forgotten an awful lot.
It'd be very interesting to see if that story appears in subsequent newspapers in different editions, I guess, because that's a story that I think will travel.
And what the Office of National Statistics says in response as well.
Yes. OK, on to the Times, and it's a story that's carried by both the Times and the Telegraph, is it not, about prostate tests for men being wrongly, in this case, thousands of men wrongly refusing treatment for aggressive prostate cancer because inaccurate tests underplay the severity of the disease. John, do you want to start?
Yeah, it's quite a worrying story because, I mean, you rely on these tests. I mean, the procedure, as I understand it, just looking at the story quite quickly, is that the tests tend to suggest that the cancer isn't particularly aggressive, and then the normal thing to do in that situation is not to operate, and they've ended up not operating on men whose cancers have been more aggressive than the test suggests.
And Angela, it says many whose cancers are considered low risk are often advised to avoid immediate treatment because the grueling side effects of surgery and the radiotherapy could turn out to be worse than the effects of an indolent tumour. But of course, if the diagnosis is wrong...
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think there's clearly, as you read the story, first of all, it's very concerning, because you want people to go and get tested for cancer. There is an assumption that when you've had the test that you've got an answer that is right as much as they can be, because there'll always be some debate on that, and this sort of puts that at risk. I think clearly that a bit more needs to be done. I think we need to perhaps have some more information about the analysis itself. Quite often on medical stories, there is an analysis, then there's a further analysis, and then there's a dispute between experts about what's right and what's wrong. I think critical to this is it doesn't put men off going to getting tested for cancer.
All right, we don't often make it onto the business pages, but on the Telegraph's business pages, there are a couple of very interesting ones. Let's start, first of all, with the Co-op Bank and the Co-op Group. And with your background in all things financial, would you like to stab at this one?
Yes, I mean, what this story is about is, firstly, there's more losses than have so far been revealed as far as the Co-op is concerned. And on the back of that, there's also a question of how is this organisation run in future. It's a few weeks ago where the new chief executive brought in to sort out the problems in the Co-op, walked. He said this was ungovernable. In the last 24 hours, one of the independent directors, again brought in to sort out the governance issues, has walked in, Paul Miners, and now it looks like tomorrow we're going to get what has been widely expected, and that is further losses within the organisation. Self-evidently, I mean, the Co-op is actually an integral part of so many towns and cities in this country, and getting the Co-op back on course in financial terms, in its management terms, its strategic direction, and how it has a board that can run the organisation is actually pretty important. And I think it's in for a rocky day tomorrow.
I thought the Co-op Bank was no longer part of the wider Co-op movement.
The Co-op,
right?
the Co-op owns about 30% still of the bank.
Right.
And there's a question about how you do the governance reorganisation, because you're absolutely right, John, that underneath the Co-op are lots of co-ops which have, their own independence, but also have a say on how the big organisation gets run.
And some sectors of it are doing pretty well.
They are indeed. I think they still bury more people than anybody else, for example. They are our largest undertaker. And I don't know if you've been into a Co-op store recently, but some are pretty good. I don't know what all, maybe I should say the ones that I've been into.
You're asking me if I've been to a funeral party.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm afraid I've been to funeral parlour as well. So there is something about getting this whole enchilada correct, sorting out the last aspects of the bank, the broad governance issue, and the perception of the Co-op and it ensuring that it's a well-managed organisation going on is all very important pieces.
It's a mess. It seems to be in a bad way.
Well, I'm no expert. Angela's the expert. I think it sounds to me as if the Co-op Bank is probably not much longer for this world, and the rest of the Co-op movement is going to have to find some way of.
Well, they're looking at sustaining.
I mean, underneath the headline, of course, it says Group may reassess whether it should invest 120 million to support the lender as members are offered vote on mutual future. This is a lot of questions. All
right, I probably should address the next story to Angela as well, because Marks & Spencer, bang on with strategies, clothing sales sparkle, but the picture to go with the story is their new brand of women, as it were, who aren't really professional models, either in any way or shape. But interesting that this is all to try to suggest, I think, that Mark Bolland, the chief exec, the strategy is working.
Yes. And I actually think it's a rather nice idea to have a range of non-models modelling the clothes. The Marks & Spencer's range is actually rather good. Maybe I've just gone and plugged it.
Is that dare I ask?
This is a Marks & Spencer's M&S man. I'm offended because this advert isn't directed at me.
Oh, well, I'm terribly sorry.
I'm dressed entirely in Marks & Spencer's.
Well, yes, but I think the number of times you buy a suit is probably much less than the number of times I buy a jacket. And I, too, have got quite a bit of Marks & Spencer's on, but I'm not going to show you where it is.
We don't often get that come out at the paper review, but yes, I don't quite know where to take it from there.
Well, Marks & Spencer's clothing sales are up.
Absolutely.
Well, very good.
I don't know if that was me or if that was you.
Is there anything you would like to own up to, John, about...
or anything else you want to own up to?
I think I've been told we've got to finish. Yes. All right, thank you both very much. Very entertaining. Angela Knight from Energy UK and John Rentoul from The Independent on Sunday. Thank you very much indeed. Well, revelations indeed. Stay with us here on BBC News, though, because at midnight we'll have more on the news that a man has been charged over the 1998 Omagh bombing. But coming up next, it's time for Sports Day.